Come on, come on, no! Whoa, where am I? How did I get this? What? Buying? Do I choose to... Okay, I guess not. Wait, guys, no, come back. How do I... Well, I guess, welcome to... That's right, today we're venturing into one of the hottest competitive shooters on the market, and somehow still the go-to title for e-daters everywhere, Valorant. And while it's a game that people have mastered pixel-perfect aim in, there's still one area I think we can delve deeper into. And that's the game's lore, specifically this bad boy right here. If I have to give credit to Riot Games for anything, they do an astoundingly good job with aesthetics and lore. That's why when other competitors in the space are fine with a backstory that just amounts to T's and CT's, Valorant instead has these beautiful cinematics that decorate their world, and one item stood out to me as particularly interesting, and that's the spike. The spike is at the epicenter of the game, being the primary objective of the attacking team in placing then detonating, and the obvious counter being defense asking them very politely in a civilized manner to maybe reconsider. Or guns work too, but it got me thinking, despite hearing about this game constantly throughout the years, what exactly is the spike? In a game with absolutely no relation to this one, CSGO, the bomb is pretty self-explanatory. Some C4 is placed in a location you would most likely not want to have C4 going off in. But for Valorant, the spike is far less straightforward, and the further I dug into the lore, the more interesting it got, and that's what we're out here doing today. What exactly is going on with the spike, and just how fearsome is it actually? The easiest place to start is the Valorant wiki. On it, it's described as a device that's created by the agent Killjoy with the intention of, quote, stealing Radianite. Okay, so what's that? Well, Radiant isn't just a title for a skilled player. It's basically a major power source found within the game's lore that went on to fuel the entire world after its discovery. And if that's not crazy enough, it turns out that there are two parallel worlds, and in one of them, called Omega, is stealing stuff from the Alpha world. Fun fact, if you were ever curious about those strange boxes lying around different bomb plant sites, those are actually filled to the brimstone with the precious resource.
Shut up.
These agents are touching down at key storage locations of Radianite with the sole purpose of committing their own Ocean's 5 heist, only to be thwarted by the mall cops of the Alpha world, who try and stop them from taking their fancy batteries. This is backed up by the different cinematics where the planted bomb is actively shown, being Duelist, Retake, Duality, and Incursions. Duelist is our first ever cinematic, where we see the canonical outcome of one of these bombs going off, resulting in the city of Venice floating in midair. While I don't like Venice sinking any more than anyone else, even I can tell this is a bit of an overcorrection. In this event, it shows the insane explosive potential of these spikes, completely destabilizing the surrounding area. Here, we see the energy of the spike interacting with the space around it, and the Radianite containers lifting up in the air. This is only confirmed by Retake, with Yoru defusing the bomb with the exact same effects going on. It's in Incursions we get our first close look of a bomb going off when the team fakes their defuse and misses their chance. Here, what looks like a giant windstorm transforms into the black ball seen in game, ending with the people inside seeming like they won't be getting up for a while.
Attackers win.
Now that we know what the explosion looks like, we can more easily identify it, or at least try to. The problem is that the Valorant spike contains properties of 3 different types of explosions. At first, you would imagine that this works like any traditional detonation, where it creates an immediate blast radius and damages the people around it. The only problem is that it doesn't damage the structures at all. In this aspect, it's more like a biological weapon, and considering that people inside the spike's range get hit for minus 999 damage, this could be more akin to something like a massive radiation spike. But the strict fall-off zone isn't consistent with radiation. Finally, looking into the lore aspect of how Omega is trying to steal the super special MacGuffin, we can't rule out that this is just a spatial or teleporting bomb, which takes the agent along for the ride with the cargo. In order to cover all my bases, we're going to evaluate the spike as if it were each of these different types of ordnances, since it seems to have traces of all of them. We'll first take a look at the more traditional explosives. Now, if you haven't subscribed already, you better sub now, because I absolutely put myself on a list by doing this research. Do you have any idea how fast the FBI is going to show up at my door when I am suddenly looking up with increasing specificity the TNT amount needed to wipe out a very precise distance? Anyway, so when our payload goes off, the zone where your player character can die during the round-ending explosion is 36 meters. Naturally, I think for the world's safety, the internet makes it kinda hard to find out how big a payload needs to be to get to a similar explosion size. But don't worry, let me rectify that. After looking through our different resources, I found 2 data points that gave me what I think is our closest range, that being 0.1 to 0.19 kilotons of TNT. That number is more awkward than the Valorant voice, so let's just switch this to 100 to 190 tons of TNT, the low end of which we get from nuke maps, taking the fireball radius that has the highest mortality rate. The higher end is taken from this counterterrorism paper, which indicates the minimum safest evacuation distance from a suitcase bomb is around the same distance our agents have to run from. Considering the sizes provided, something like a suitcase or a backpack is closest to the spike size. But still, this is the absolute maximum payload these kinds of bombs can produce. And I think it's hard sometimes to visualize 100 tons of TNT, so you don't need to. This is a test created by the US military as part of its run-up to the Trinity nuclear test. This massive block of Acme's finest is a packed cube of TNT 27 feet each side. Now, if we're talking about the explosion, we have a clip of that too. Okay, wow. So this honestly just looks insane. Plus, it doesn't really take into account things like the fatalities from the different blast radius or the thermal radiation radius. So maybe the Valorant bomb is closer to a chemical weapon. And since we have characters that thrive with traditional poisons, maybe the bomb is akin to radiation. Considering that the health hits an immediate -999 when hit with the blast, let's start looking into some radioactivity amounts whose poisons would put Viper to shame. For this section, we need to first talk about how radiation is measured. If you're familiar with media like Chernobyl or Fallout that mention radiation amounts, you've probably heard the terms Rontgens or rads. In the current day, we use the units Gray and sieverts, but they indicate the same process. Gray measures the absorbed dose, which the energy is delivered to the tissue, while sieverts measures the effective dose, or the actual damage done to the body by the radiation. Now, something that makes radiation very different is how they define a fatal dose. Unlike the traditional bombs, radiation's threshold for instant death isn't as well defined. Like, these 2 US government web pages list totally different amounts for what would be classified as fatal. I mean, out of all things, it's a little crazy that this is a number we haven't reached an agreement on. To learn why this is the case, I turn to the Johnson Archive, a list of all radiological incidents and fatalities. The reason for such a variance is that over a certain threshold, radiation poisoning of any amount has basically sealed your fate, just not the instant death kind. More like a gruesome 3 to 12 months. Looking into something a little bit quicker, I reviewed every single event from 1990 till now to see which one would have the closest mirror to our case. This ended up being the Gronsky Orphaned Source event in 1999. This is probably the craziest story out of everything I read. Okay, so in Chechnya, Russia, 6 individuals attempted to steal radioactive material from a chemical factory. You heard that right, steal. And that's why you should really stick to taking jewelry, because I don't even know who would be in the market for something like that. I'm pretty sure pawn shop owners wouldn't even have an offer for you.
Wrong, but it scares me when you say it's your buddy's chain. I don't know where your buddy got it.
Anyway, so one of the people opened the container and removed some 12-centimeter rods of cobalt-60. This is a substance that is so radioactive, it is the only record I could find in the entire archive that is not listed in Grays or Sieverts. Instead, it's in Curies, a completely different unit that measures radioactive decay per second. And these rods were producing 27,000 Curies each. From the report, one individual handles the source for a few minutes and dies 30 minutes later, the fastest recorded death from the pieces that I read. Wanting to find the dosage, I posed the question to r/radiation to see if we could get the formula, and their approximation was somewhere around 30 gray. At this level, this is equivalent to some radiation amounts experienced in some of the worst hit areas of Chernobyl. And may I remind you, the Valorant bomb effect is instant, so it is even worse. Comparing this to our 2 US military numbers, we can expect that our bomb is somewhere within the 100 gray range. But there are a few problems if we end up going with radiation. Namely, it doesn't have such a hard cutoff like in the game. Instead, it follows something called the inverse square law, which means that the severity of radiation from these kind of payloads wouldn't gradually fade at a linear rate, rather squared to the distance away. And that's not the scary part though. Considering just how much radiation we're dealing with here, even if you're not inside the instant death zone of the blast radius, you could still be leaving the battle not entirely scot-free. Doing some very rough math using the inverse square law, with 100 gray, you'd have to be standing at least 32 meters away to only get hit with 0.1 GY. To get to the much safer background radiation levels would have to be much, much farther. And since the average yearly radiation exposure is 3 millisieverts, and our 0.1 gray comes out to be almost double the maximum yearly dose permitted by US radiation workers. So no one on that battlefield is leaving entirely fine. So that leaves us with our final option, that the bomb is rather a teleportation device, and the body's left as a gameplay choice rather than totally lore accurate. While we've seen some esports promo material showcasing people that failed to defuse in time, we've also seen agents teleporting to Other Earth in the cinematics, so I'm not ruling this option out.
This planet sucks!
But honestly, while option A and B are horrible for the pain you experience, getting blipped into an entirely new reality might be a fate worse than death. Ugh! What happened to me? Where am I? Huh? Yo, man. Oh my god, you're me, but how is that? Yeah, dude, the teleporter brought you over here. It's really no stress. Oh. Huh, I see. So this is the Other Earth? Weird. Any major differences you can tell me about? Not really, man. We just started running out of radionite faster. Basically the same otherwise. Got it. Well, that's comforting at least. Hey, you got any good games in this world? Yeah, man, we got League of Legends. It comes pre-installed on all gaming devices, actually. It's basically the only game people play here anymore.
Switching sides.
Hey, you can all just tell me where you're going. Oh, I just hate solo queue. So, what did we learn? Well, basically, no matter if the spike is kinetic, radioactive, or gravitational, basically anywhere near this WED, weapon of elo destruction, would be a surefire way to kiss that sweet life goodbye. The only problem is, in 2 of our 3 cases, just being outside the blast radius isn't enough to keep you safe, as the bomb's knock-on effects is sure to knock whatever remaining sense you have as you try to climb in this game. So the only way to ensure your safety is
Planted.
to defuse it. Well, here goes nothing.
12 seconds later.
I know exactly where you are. Nobody escapes me, but they'll try.
Come on, come on, no!
Clutch!
And now, you just need to do that 13 times perfectly. To be honest, League is sounding kinda nice right now. Who am I kidding?